Today I feel really, really sad. I am just devastated today. When was the last time that you felt sad? Do you often feel sad? Well, okay, maybe actually I'm not that sad. I was lying. I was acting. I wasn't lying, I was acting. But yeah, today I want to talk about being sad. This is something that I did a lot in the past where I covered a few different episodes on emotions like happiness and some others as well, perhaps. And it's been on my mind to do for a while on different emotions because it seems simple on the surface, but it's something that we all go through all the time, every day, different emotions. And of course, it's useful in English to talk about not only I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry, but different words to express these feelings too. And I think this is not only useful for English and expanding your vocabulary and sounding more fluent, but also I think when it comes to understanding emotions, the more words we know for these emotions, the more emotions we can feel. I think there have been some studies before that have shown this, that if you don't know the word for a certain emotion, you don't really know how to express that emotion. A lot of emotions get grouped into anger. I feel angry. But then if you really learn the different types of emotions there are, you might realize, oh, it's not anger, it's envy. Oh, it's not anger, it's disappointment. That sometimes we group things together when that's not actually the case. And of course, I know you know all of these words in your native language as well, but I wonder if there are some differences. I don't know if we're going to cover that today, but maybe you will think of something while I'm talking today that, oh, there's a difference here between my language and English. We don't have the exact same translation for this word. Maybe. But yeah, I'm going to try my best to talk about different ways today to express sadness. But of course, I'm an optimistic person. I don't want to be sad. So I'm going to end each word, each section, with a tip or an idea or maybe a method on how we can be happy. So hopefully we're going to talk about sadness a little bit, but then end with a positive note each time. So we're going to have a roller coaster of emotions today. A lot of good and a lot of bad. Let's see how it goes. This is the Level Up English podcast, the best place to come to level up and improve your English one day at a time. My name is Michael, your host and your teacher for the day. Let's get started. So I've loosely organized this episode by going from a little bit sad and getting more extreme as we get to the end. So let's start with down. I'm feeling a bit down today. I think this is a really, really common one. We use it all the time, at least in the UK. And it, as I said, it just means a little bit sad, a little bit low. Low, down, all of these kind of directions are associated with being sad. And I wonder if, especially in British English, it's not that common to be super honest about your emotions. We tend to under-exaggerate things. So rather than saying, I'm over the moon, I'm really, really happy, we might say, yeah, I feel pretty good. And the hidden meaning there is that I am very happy. If you're very depressed and sad, a lot of people might just say, yeah, I'm a little bit down. I'm not great. So I think it's a British thing, especially. We under-exaggerate the feelings. Maybe we shouldn't. I think it can be healthy to honestly express how you're feeling, but it is a part of the culture, to be sure. So you'll hear this one a lot. I'm feeling down. Yeah, I'm feeling a bit down today because it's Monday. I'm back to work. Oh, I'm feeling a bit down. So maybe you can let me know if you have felt down before for no reason at all. What did you do to cheer yourself up when you felt down? I think this is a common human experience. I think we often just feel down and we don't really know why. It happened to me a lot. Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Thankfully, I've got over that period for now. But there was a whole week where I had a thought or a memory and I felt down. And then I forgot what the thought was. I forgot why I felt down. But even though we forget the reason, the emotion can sometimes stay there. So for the whole day, for a couple of days, I was feeling a bit down. I wasn't super happy. And I was thinking like, wait, why am I sad? What happened? I can't remember. I know I'm sad for a reason, but I can't remember why. And when you say it out loud, it sounds ridiculous, but I think it's something we've all felt before, right? Maybe when you realize that, it's a good reminder to just put it behind us. Okay, never mind. It's not important. But yeah, it does happen from time to time. And sometimes it's actually not a big thing. And yeah, I never did remember why I was feeling down. And yeah, I think my tip to cheer you up when you're feeling down now, just my maybe tip to myself that might also apply to you, is just go for a walk. If it could be somewhere in a natural environment like a park or the countryside, somewhere with green if possible, that's even better. Away from buildings and cars and maybe electronics, away from all this kind of stuff. That's ideal. But even if not, I just think going for a walk is a great antidote, that means a fix, to feeling down. For me personally, I used to have a rule that was, if I ever feel down, just go for a walk until I feel better. And sometimes that would just be a 5-minute walk and I would feel great after that. Sometimes that would be 2 hours. I'd be gone for 2 hours and I'd come back and I'd be tired, but I feel like, yes, I've had exercise, I feel good. I saw some beautiful trees or something like that. I think walking is a great antidote to feeling down. So yeah, try it if you feel a bit down today. Another very similar word is blue. You might know this one as well, but blue, the color blue, at least in English, you can let me know if your country is the same, but in English, we associate blue with sad. Blue is sad. So if you're feeling blue, you're feeling a little bit down. It's kind of the same level as down. It's not super sad, just a little bit, kind of like that. It's a gentle sadness. So yeah, I've been feeling blue lately, or we might say I have the blues or I get the blues. Often when it rains all day, maybe I get the blues. That's actually not true. I think especially in a cold country like the UK, it can be quite nice when it's raining all day and you feel cozy inside. If you do feel, you feel the blues when it rains, then maybe you can change your perspective to focus on that cozy feeling. That's one idea. But yeah, I guess my question for you would be, if it is raining all day, would you rather stay at home kind of feeling a bit blue, or would you rather go outside and have fun anyway? There's no right answer, of course, but I know for some people they will go outside regardless of the weather. And that's what I used to do in the UK. Go for a walk, go for a bike ride. Doesn't matter if it's raining, it's still nice. But I will say the weather in Thailand is a bit different. So I don't really want to go for a bike ride in a tropical rainstorm. It's a bit miserable. You get soaked through to the skin. It's not nice. But yeah, I feel like one of my tips to be happy here is if I'm feeling a bit blue, let's say it's raining all the time, is making sure you have something that makes you happy in any situation or any environment. So I used to get the blues because all the things that made me happy depended on good weather and good air quality. Going cycling, going walking or running, going to the shops, is something outside basically. But there were some days where it was raining, the pollution was very bad, I didn't want to go outside. Maybe I was just feeling a bit introverted. I wanted to be alone. I didn't want to see other people. And then I'd be stuck inside, but the only thing I have to do inside is watch YouTube videos, play video games. So recently I found a new hobby, which is sewing. I think I might have mentioned this before, but I've recently been doing a lot of sewing. I've been making bags. What else have I made? I even made some trousers. I made some trousers for myself. I'm planning to make a hat in the future. So it's been a really fun and creative hobby for me. And it's something that I can just spend many hours doing inside. So maybe that's my tip to be happy here, is find hobbies that you can do no matter where you are or what the situation. So in my case, it was having both outdoor and indoor hobbies. So wherever I am, I can do something that makes me happy. Yeah, to find a hobby, I think you just have to try something and see if you like it. Maybe you don't know until you like it. Okay, another one is low-spirited. This is a compound adjective, but it might be more common to say, I have low spirits, or their spirits are low. We can say it in a few different ways. But as an adjective, we just say low-spirited. When we use the word spirit, we're often talking about your energy, your kind of vibe in a way. So low spirits is sad, but it's much more focused on lacking energy or lacking enthusiasm. So I think this is something I have much more. I don't often wake up and feel sad, but I do sometimes wake up and feel low-spirited, where I just don't have much motivation to do my work. I don't have motivation to go to the gym or something like that. So I think this is a common thing that you can probably relate to as well. Here's an example. She was feeling low-spirited after the exam results. So there's a direct connection between the bad results and her mood. Now, my question for you is a bit more specific, but I think it could be interesting. Have you ever felt low-spirited after reaching a big goal? So this is when you've reached a goal, you've succeeded, and then there's a moment of, now what do I do? That feeling. So this is a common feeling of being low-spirited after reaching a goal. I felt this way, I suppose, when I first went to Japan about 10 years ago. I was very excited to go to Japan. It was my dream for a long time. When I did go there, I felt quite low-spirited because I achieved my dream and then I had no more dreams. I had to make a new dream, which was a bit scary to do. So that's one example. And I think I'm going to give you a tip specific to this question, that if you're feeling low-spirited, then give yourself a break. I think that would be my advice for this one, is it's not realistic to expect every day you're going to be happy and motivated and positive. I think life just doesn't work that way. When there's an up, there's a down. It's true in physics and it's also true in emotions, I think. It's very common, you might have felt this before, if you have a moment of intense happiness, of success or pleasure or something like that, very often the next day or soon after, you're going to have sadness, right? And I feel like this is just the body's way of balancing out. When there's sadness, happiness comes later, and vice versa, right? I think it's just the way that things work. So yeah, don't have that expectation that you'll always be happy. If you do feel low-spirited, give yourself a break. For me, I have a bit more flexibility. I know I'm very lucky. So if I plan to record a podcast episode today, but I'm feeling low-spirited, maybe I will say, okay, I'm going to take it easy today and I'm actually going to record tomorrow instead. And maybe I'll be happier tomorrow. I think that would be much better for the recording as well. But yeah, maybe it could just be at work, just say to yourself, okay, I'm not going to do my best work today. I'm going to try to do a little bit, but I'm not going to have my expectations so high. I'm going to give myself a break and go easy on myself. So that's a good tip, I would say. So now we're getting into some more serious sadness now, a little bit more moderate or heartache, we can say. And this next word is a good adjective. It's hard to pronounce because the spelling is a bit confusing, but this is distraught. Distraught. So D-I-S-T-R-A-U-G-H-T. That last part is difficult, right? U-G-H-T, but it's pronounced ought. Distraught. And this is when you are extremely upset or annoyed or agitated in some way. You're distraught. So one example where this would be appropriate would be, she was distraught after losing her purse. She was distraught. So you can imagine like crying, maybe even screaming like, no, where's my purse? I'm really upset. Tears going down my face. Yeah, distraught. If you have an accident, you might be distraught. for some reason as well. Now, this is where things get a little bit trickier in terms of advice because, of course, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist, I don't exactly know what I can say. In terms of a question to ask, maybe I could ask you if you can think of a time when you were so distraught that you couldn't focus on, your English learning, for example. And that's, of course, very understandable. I want to be careful not to bring up too many specific examples because I don't want to trigger people to make them relive those sad memories again. But I'll try to give you a slightly less serious example to make this a little bit lighthearted. So when I was very young, maybe 5 years old, 6 years old, I went on a school trip with my class. We went to this island nearby where we lived. And being a simple little boy, I found a rock that I really liked. It was my favorite rock, and I took it everywhere with me on that day. I don't know why I liked this rock, but it's one memory I do have of being that young. And when we had to leave the island, I dropped my favorite rock. And I didn't know where it was. I was looking for it, but the teacher said, "Come on, Michael, we have to go. We're going to be late for the boat to go back home." And I never found my rock. And I remember, I think this is such a clear memory, even though I was so young, it was a clear memory because I was so distraught. I remember crying and feeling, "Where's my rock? Where's my rock?" I was really distraught about losing my rock. And honestly, I'm still a little bit annoyed now. I'm still a little bit distraught. Even today, like so many decades later, I'm still a bit distraught. The trauma is still there, So yeah, I mean, maybe that's a good example for you. You can maybe think of some very old memories where you were distraught, but now you can look back and laugh. That might be a better example of what to do today. And I suppose a real good piece of advice that I've heard for dealing with these more intense feelings of distress, right? Feeling distraught, is writing things down. Keeping a journal, writing down how you feel. It can feel very therapeutic, calming, relaxing to write down how you feel. And another thing about that is coming back and reading it later. Even if you don't feel better after doing that, maybe 2 days later, you'll read what you wrote and you might notice, oh, I've actually improved since this moment. I'm not feeling that sad anymore. And it's the fact that you wrote it down allowed you to see that, maybe. So I think journaling, writing things down can be a very useful way to deal with distraught feelings. This next one is pretty serious too. Although I will say in the UK, this is used quite a lot. And I think it's almost like an exaggeration. This is the word devastated. Devastated. This means very, very sad and extremely shocked as well. It might have an element of shock or surprise in there as well. For example, when you get some sudden, very bad news, you're devastated. And yeah, I think this is used in an exaggerated way as well. It's a little bit like how we say, "I'm starving." Now, you're not really starving because that means you're dying from hunger. But starving just means very hungry, casually. And I think this is the same. Devastation means extreme sadness. But we often use it in a less extreme example like, "Oh, I failed my exam, I'm devastated," right? And it's just a nicer word in terms of the advanced level of the word rather than just sad. Sad is very simple. Devastated is nicer in terms of the level of English. So if you can use that word, it could be good in many different situations. But yeah, I was devastated after the exam. I was devastated when I heard the news, for example. And if you want to describe something that makes you sad, we just say devastating. The devastating loss of blank. The devastating. So let me give you a would you rather question now. Think about this one carefully. Would you rather face, which means experience, face one devastating loss but recover quickly, or several smaller devastating losses that last a long time? So yeah, once again, you have one really, really sad thing that hits you and it's incredibly sad, but then you get over it, or just a few little smaller sad things, but they last a long time. Oh, this is hard to think about. I really don't like these would you rather questions where both options are negative. It's not easy. But yeah, I feel like for me, that's hard, I suppose. It's kind of 50-50 almost for me. I'm thinking maybe if I have one, of course it depends what it is, right? It depends what it is. But if I have one very big sad thing, but I get over it quickly, maybe that's better because I have a longer time in my life where I'm not sad. I think it's better to have more days in your life that are happy rather than just a little bit sad every day, right? So I think I might go for the former, the big sadness that I get over quickly. But yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know if you disagree. I think that's a hard one. And I think for my tip to be happy on this one, I will share something I heard in a podcast episode yesterday. And he mentioned a great phrase in this episode that was, focus on the happy thoughts. Otherwise, it's easy to spiral out of control. And I like this. I do feel like we go down these spirals. To spiral is to spin around, like down the drain, like in the toilet or the sink, and it goes around and round, and then you can't get out of the spiral. I think this is quite meaningful because a lot of life is what you make it. Life is what you focus on. If you look at the sun and the blue sky and the happy stuff, that's what you will see. But then if you look at the shadows and the rain clouds and the dark stuff, that's also what you see. I think everything in life has good and bad to it, and what you focus on is what becomes true. I don't think there's a true way of looking at life. I don't think there's a correct way. I think, as I said, there's always good and bad in every moment, in every situation. But if you focus on the bad, it's easy to spiral down, and that's when we get depressed and very sad. So yeah, try to focus on those happy things. It could be the way the light is shining through your window. It could be a little bug that you see crawling along the floor. These things that you notice that make you a little bit happy. And I think that helps you avoid those negative thought spirals. That's one tip that I kind of heard on another podcast, but I liked, so I'm stealing it. Now I want to share a couple idioms or expressions related to feeling sad. One of them is down in the dumps. Down in the dumps. Yeah, I'm just a bit down in the dumps this week. I've been feeling down in the dumps, right? This is really the same as what we mentioned before. I'm feeling down. That's just a shorter way of saying down in the dumps. And I think because it's shorter, it's also more common. But you might hear this one too. The dump is like where you leave your rubbish, you leave your trash. So that's not a nice place to be, is it? Down in the dumps, you're unhappy, maybe depressed. So if you are feeling down in the dumps, I feel like it's good to give yourself a little reward. Whether that's just doing something you like, doing something that makes you happy. I do think we have to be careful because if you're always rewarding yourself for negative feelings, that can lead to some addictions. Like if you always eat some chocolate or some cake when you feel sad, that's going to lead to other problems that we don't need to go into, but it's obvious, right? But I think sometimes being fair to yourself and treating yourself can be a nice way to get over these down in the dumps feelings or down in the dumps periods. So you have a snack that you like, run a bath with some hot water and some candles. That can be really nice. Just do something to treat yourself. I know a lot of my friends here will go get a massage. They pay for a massage here. I don't like them personally, but for some people that's relaxing. For me personally, it might be ordering some from a restaurant that's a little bit more expensive. So I don't normally order there, but maybe I feel like I need a treat today. I did that last week after I cycled over 100 kilometers in one day. I was exhausted, I was tired, and I was like, you know what? I deserve nice food today. I deserve it. So I ordered quite a lot from a good restaurant. And yeah, I wasn't down in the dumps that day, but I still felt like I needed it. Another thing that I might do is just, again, give myself a break. If you know me from listening to this podcast, you might know that I love my routines and it keeps me on track to my language habits and other things like that. But if we are too strict, it can create unnecessary pressure or even lead to sadness in some cases. So let's say I'm feeling really down, I'm down in the dumps. I might just say, okay, instead of walking for 10,000 steps every day and then doing meditation and all this stuff, let's finish your work a bit early, Michael, and play some video games. Do something that you really like. Okay, you're being a bit lazy today, but I think that break is what you need right now. So yeah, kind of that self-care, that self-appreciation is important, right? And okay, I think we'll end on one more, which is, I guess it's a phrasal verb, and this is to well up. W-E-L-L. So we often use well up to talk about tears. Tears welling up. And I think the reason that we say up is because I suppose the tears are kind of moving up in a sense. It's not tears coming down your face when you're crying. Welling up is what you do before you start crying. The tears start piling up in your eyes. So it's kind of like coming from the bottom of your eyelid and then building up, almost like a puddle in your eyes, right? So I think it does make sense that it's going up. You might be confused why we say up, but I think that's why. But yeah, we say welling up. So if you say I'm welling up, that means I feel that tears are starting to come in my eyes. This is, of course, not usually an extreme sadness. I suppose, honestly, it could be anything. It could be very sad or a little bit sad. We basically, whenever we want to cry. But if you hear some news, or maybe more commonly, you're watching a movie that's quite sad, you might say, oh, I have tears welling up. I'm starting to cry. If my friend wants to share some bad news with me, I might say, oh, that's really sad to hear. Oh, I've got tears welling up at the moment. I'm so sorry. Right? So it kind of just means you're close to crying. You're close to crying. So let me end with the question, can you remember a movie or TV series that you watched that made you well up, that made tears well up in your eyes? What was it and why? I think for many of us, it's so much easier to cry when we're watching a movie compared to many things in real life. I don't know why. We're kind of engrossed, which means like stuck and focused in the story, and things just feel much more emotional. I think they're trying to make you cry, and often it does work. The one that comes to my mind is honestly still very traumatic. I know a lot of people don't like The Walking Dead, the zombie TV series, but I'm one of the few people that really enjoyed it. Even to the end, I watched to the very end. I liked everything. Of course, some were better than others, but I liked it all generally. And if you have seen The Walking Dead, I mean, first of all, you need to have a strong stomach. It's quite bloody and gory. It's not for the kind of person who doesn't like blood and zombies, of course. But if you have seen it, you will probably know there's one episode in particular which is very horrible. And it's probably the one where most people gave up and stopped watching because a lot of people thought it was just too far. It was too extreme. Again, if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. And I remember so clearly, again, I think emotional experiences stay with us, like me losing my rock when I was a baby, when I was a kid. They stay with us because emotions just don't disappear that quickly. So I remember where I was living in my flat in the UK at the time. I watched this episode. And from the very beginning, it was the first episode of one of the seasons. I was already sad because I felt like something was definitely going to be bad. They kind of previewed it in the season before that it was something bad was going to happen. So right from the beginning, I had tears welling up in my eyes. I was ready to cry. And then my favorite character, my favorite person in the series was killed. I'm not going to give any spoilers any more than that. But yeah, my favorite person was killed. And at that point, I was more than welling up. What can we say? I burst out crying. I had tears running down my face. I don't think I've ever cried so much when watching anything before. That was maybe the most I've cried when watching a series before. But yeah, let me know what that is for you. Maybe let me know if you've seen The Walking Dead. Did you also cry at that moment? Or were you angry? Or don't tell me you laughed. You better not have laughed. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe there was something else for you. Tell me, what is the TV series that made you cry the most, or the movie that made you cry the most? And maybe I'll watch it if you recommend it too. But yeah, I wonder why it is. Why do we like crying? I guess it's like that emotional release. Sometimes in life we have emotions and stress that build up, and it's not enough to cry. You know, if you have a bad day at work, maybe it's not strong enough to make you cry, but it kind of builds up. And then when you watch something really emotional and you cry, all of those emotions come out and you kind of relax and release. And maybe there's something good about that in the long run. I don't know. I'm not a therapist, crying expert, but I think there might be something there. And I think my last tip, I will say, it may seem like an obvious one, but it might be a nice reminder, because we can forget. You know, we're focused on work and we forget to make time for these things. And this is make time for things that make you laugh. I'm a huge fan of some particular YouTubers or streamers online. And honestly, the content is very shallow, we can say. It's not like deep. It doesn't have some deep meaning. It's just a few people online playing video games or chatting or something like that. Very easy to watch content. But these particular people, I find them very funny. They make me laugh so much. So I spend a lot of time watching them. And it's never time that I regret, because I know it lifts my mood and it keeps me happy, right? So you never feel bad about wasting time if you're doing something that makes you laugh. That might be a good tip to end on here. And I think I will just end with a quote and also a thank you to one listener, one podcast review. I suppose I should say just thank you generally. A lot of you have been getting in touch by email. You've been filling in the contact form on my website. I mean, first of all, that makes me happy because I know people are visiting the website. It's something I've worked very hard on. If you do want to go to Level Up English and have a look at the website, see what it looks like, you can have a look around. And there's also a little button I've added in the corner that pops up with like a chat conversation message, and that is connected to my email. So if you want to say hi or thank you or ask a question, you can do so there. I've got a lot of nice questions recently there. So yeah, thank you to everyone who has got in touch or left a comment on the website too. I always love to see comments on the podcast pages. That always makes me happy. I guess because remember, of course I can see how many people listen to an episode, but what's much more useful and appreciated for a podcaster is engagement. I'd rather have 5 people who love the podcast than 10,000 people who listen but don't really like it. I think that engagement is much more important. So if you do like the episode and you have some time, leave a comment, say hi. That always means a lot to me, and it's quite motivating for me to keep going as well. And yeah, speaking of motivating, another great thing that people do to keep me motivated is leaving podcast reviews. So I had one here written from the UK, from BIBIGHJ. I don't know if that's a name, but if it was a name, I would say maybe it's Bibig. But perhaps not, I don't know. But anyway, that person simply said, "I love your podcast and I hope you make more episodes." Well, here's one more for you right now. So thank you very much, and I'm glad you like the podcast. And for the quote to end on, again, I've tried to end in a positive way. This is from Jean de La Fontaine, maybe pronounced something like that. And they said, "Sadness flies away on the wings of time." That sounds very poetic, almost like describing time like a bird, flying away. So yeah, sadness flies away on the wings of time. So I think this is a nice reminder. If you are going through a sad time at the moment, then time, here's another quote, "Time is the healer of all wounds." With time, things become easier, sad things pass, happy times will come in the future. So yeah, if you are feeling sad right now, you need to have that knowledge, that hope that, happiness is around the corner. Happiness will come in the future, for sure. So yeah, we'll leave it there. I hope you feel, you don't feel, I hope you feel happier after listening to me today. Let me know if you do. And I will see you next week for another one. So thank you very much and see you then. You have been listening to the Level Up English podcast. If you would like to leave a question to be answered on a future episode, then please go to levelupenglish.school/podcast. That's levelupenglish.school/podcast. And I'll answer your question on a future episode. Thanks for listening.